The hall was alive with music, laughter, and the sound of glasses clinking. Colorful streamers hung from the ceiling, and the smell of roasted chicken and sweet cake filled the air. Danielle stood at the doorway, clutching a small wrapped gift in her hand. Her palms were sweaty, her heart beating faster than the drums playing inside. It had been years since she had been in this house, years since she had seen her family together. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. For a moment, she let herself imagine that things would be normal again, that her family would smile, that someone would call her name, that she would finally feel at home. But the moment her mother saw her, the room changed. Her mother's smile froze, her eyes narrowing into cold disbelief. The music seemed to fade. People stopped mid-conversation, glancing between Danielle and her mother. "What are you doing here?" Her mother's voice cut through the air, sharp as glass. "You weren't invited." The words stung more than Danielle could have prepared for. She stood still, gripping the gift tighter, as if it could shield her from the blow. A nervous laugh escaped her lips, soft and broken, but no one laughed with her. Relatives whispered at the tables, hands covering mouth. An aunt shook her head. A cousin leaned close to another, whispering something Danielle couldn't hear, but she knew it was about her. Her face burned with shame. I just wanted to come," Danielle said, her voice small. "It's been so long." Her mother didn't move closer. She didn't smile. She simply turned her body, almost like she was blocking Danielle from entering further. The distance between them felt like a wall higher than the ceiling. The gift in Danielle's hands suddenly felt heavy, useless. She had thought it might be a bridge, a peace offering, a small sign that she still cared. But standing there, in front of everyone's judging eyes, she felt like a stranger in her own family. For a moment, she thought about leaving right away, but her feet refused to move. Her heart ached, not just from the rejection, but from the cruel reminder. She was no longer welcome where she once belonged. And yet, deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. When Danielle was younger, life felt simple. Her father used to call her his bright star. He would clap the loudest at her school plays and bring her ice cream after every good grade. She felt safe then, wrapped in the warmth of being loved and seen. Even her mother, though stricter, used to smile with a kind of pride whenever Danielle walked into a room. Back then, she believed nothing could break their bond. But everything changed one night when she was 16. It was her sister Rachel's birthday, a night filled with balloons and music. Danielle remembered the laughter, the candles glowing on the cake, and the way Rachel had seemed so happy. Yet by the end of the evening, happiness was gone, replaced with anger and blame. Something happened, something that never truly belonged to Danielle, but somehow fell on her shoulders. Money had gone missing from Rachel's purse. People whispered. Rachel cried loudly, accusing Danielle of being jealous, of trying to ruin her big day. Danielle swore she had done nothing, but in that storm of shouting and tears, no one wanted to listen. Her mother's face hardened. Her father looked away. In a single night, Danielle went from golden child to scapegoat. The wound never healed. From then on, Rachel became the perfect daughter, the one who could do no wrong, while Danielle became the shadow, the disappointment, the one whispered about at family dinners. Her father, once her closest ally, grew distant. Her mother, sharp and unforgiving, never missed a chance to remind her of mistakes. And Rachel? She wore her new crown proudly, making sure Danielle felt smaller with every passing year. Danielle tried to fight for her place. She studied hard, hoping good grades would change their minds. She tried to explain, to clear her name, but every attempt made things worse. By the time she finished high school, the weight of rejection was too heavy. She left for college, thinking distance might heal the cracks. But life outside was not easy. She dropped out after her second year, unable to keep up with tuition and long shifts at work. She found herself in tiny apartments, juggling bills, carrying exhaustion like a second skin. Some nights, she sat by the window, watching families laugh together on the street below, wondering if her own family ever thought of her at all. And yet, even after all the years of pain, Danielle still loved them. The memories of warmth from her childhood lingered like faint light in the dark. She kept photos tucked away in a drawer, too painful to display but impossible to throw out. She carried birthdays in her heart, even when no one called to invite her. Coming back tonight, stepping into that party, wasn't about pride. It wasn't about showing up uninvited to prove a point. It was about longing. Danielle wanted to belong again, to hear her father's voice call her bright star one more time, to sit at a table without whispers, to feel, even for a moment, like she was part of them. But as she stood in that room, with her mother's cold words still hanging in the air, she began to wonder if reconciliation was just a dream she kept chasing, a dream that had already slipped too far away. Danielle stood near the doorway, the weight of her mother's words pressing down on her chest. She wanted to disappear, but her legs refused to move. Around her, the room buzzed with whispers, though the laughter from before was gone. She could feel the eyes of cousins, uncles, and aunts following her every breath. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw Rachel. Perfect Rachel, with her polished smile and her flawless dress, walking gracefully toward their mother. She leaned close, her voice low, but Danielle caught pieces of it. "She's only here to cause trouble," Rachel whispered, her tone sharp as a knife. "You know how she is, always selfish, always trying to ruin things for everyone. Don't let her spoil tonight." Danielle's stomach turned. She recognized that tone. It was the same one Rachel used years ago, when the lies began. Back then, Rachel had stood in the middle of the living room, tears rolling down her cheeks, accusing Danielle of stealing, of being jealous. And everyone had believed her. Danielle had begged them to listen, but Rachel's tears were louder, her words sharper. Now, standing in this crowded party, Danielle understood something she hadn't wanted to see before. It wasn't just one mistake or one misunderstanding. Rachel had built her perfect image by tearing Danielle apart. Every cruel whisper, every cold stare from their mother, every silence from their father, it had all been fed by Rachel's lies. Her hands trembled as she clutched the gift tighter. She wanted to shout the truth right then, to tell everyone what Rachel had done, but her voice caught in her throat. Years of being silenced had taught her that no one wanted to hear her side. They had chosen Rachel as the good daughter, and Danielle as the problem. Rachel pulled back from their mother, giving Danielle a quick, satisfied glance. The kind of look that said, "You don't belong here, and you never will." Danielle's heart ached. She thought about the years she had lost, birthdays she wasn't invited to, family photos she wasn't in, holidays spent alone. She thought about how she had carried guilt for so long, wondering if she had really been the reason everything fell apart. And now, she saw the truth clearly. She had been punished not for what she did, but for what Rachel wanted people to believe. Her mother's eyes, cold and unyielding, were filled with fresh distrust, fueled by Rachel's whispers. Danielle realized the rejection at the door wasn't just a mistake or a moment of anger. It was years of poison finally spilling out in front of everyone. For a second, Danielle considered leaving, running out before her heart shattered completely. But another thought rose inside her, stronger than the shame. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe the lies had lived too long in silence. As she stood there, holding that unwanted gift in her hands, she made a quiet promise to herself. She wouldn't let Rachel erase her anymore. Danielle's chest rose and fell as her mother's words echoed in her head. "You weren't invited." The whispers burned, and Rachel's smug look only made the ache sharper. For a moment, Danielle thought she might just walk out, gift still in her hand, tears hidden in the night. But something inside her snapped. She had been silent for too long. "I'm not leaving," she said, her voice louder than she expected. The room stilled again, forks pausing in midair, music fading into the background. "I came here because I'm family too, whether you want to admit it or not." Her mother's face tightened. "Don't cause a scene, Danielle. This is not your place." "My place?" Danielle almost laughed, but it came out as a bitter sound. "This has been my place since I was born. You can't erase me from my own family." Rachel stepped forward, her perfect smile breaking into a sneer. "Don't start this again. You always want attention, don't you? That's why you showed up, so people would pity you." Danielle felt her cheeks burn. "Pity? Rachel, you've been painting me as a villain since we were teenagers. You lied. You told them things that weren't true, and they believed you." Gasps fluttered across the room. Aunts leaned closer to hear. Some cousins looked away, unsure whose side to take. Rachel's eyes narrowed. "Don't twist the past. You ruined everything that night. You embarrassed me. You made me cry in front of everyone, and you've never taken responsibility. You've always been jealous of me." "Jealous?" Danielle's voice cracked, anger mixing with pain. "You accused me of stealing when you knew I didn't. And you stood there, watching as everyone turned their backs on me. You didn't just take my place as the favorite, you made sure I was thrown out completely." Her mother's hand trembled, but she said nothing. Her father sat silently at the far end of the table, staring at his plate, his jaw tight. Danielle caught the flicker of guilt in his eyes, but still, he said nothing. The silence broke when Uncle Henry spoke up. "Now wait a second. I always thought it was strange. Danielle was a good kid. That night never made sense." Rachel whipped her head toward him. "Don't get involved. You don't know what happened." But the door had cracked open, and Danielle pushed further. "It wasn't just that night, was it, Rachel? You've been lying for years. Covering yourself, making sure you always looked perfect, while I took the blame." Rachel's face reddened. "You're making things up." Danielle shook her head slowly. "Am I? Or should I remind everyone about the money that went missing from Mom's jewelry box? Or how Dad's business accounts had gaps that no one could explain?" Gasps filled the room again. Danielle's mother looked at Rachel sharply. "What is she talking about?" Rachel stammered, her words slipping. She's just twisting stories, like always. You know Danielle, she'll say anything to make herself look innocent." But Danielle didn't stop. "You built your whole image on lies, Rachel. Every time something went wrong, You pushed the blame onto me. And you knew they'd believe you because you were the perfect daughter, the golden one. And me? I was the mistake, the scapegoat. Relatives murmured, some nodding, others whispering to each other. The air grew heavy with tension, old wounds mixing with new questions. Her father finally spoke, his voice low but firm. Enough. The room fell silent. He looked between his daughters, his face pale. I suspected some things, but I stayed quiet. I thought if I ignored it, the family would stay together. Danielle's stomach twisted. You knew, and you let them throw me away? His eyes filled with shame. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. Her mother looked lost, her certainty cracking. She turned to Rachel. Tell me the truth. Did you lie? Rachel's hands shook, but her pride kept her standing tall. I did what I had to do. You always compared us, always made me feel like second best. I wasn't going to let her take everything. She had Dad's love. She had everyone's attention. I deserved something too. The words hit the room like a slap. Relatives shifted uncomfortably, the perfect daughter, image collapsing before their eyes. Danielle's breath came fast, her heart pounding, but for the first time, she felt lighter. The lies were spilling out, and the truth was finally shining through. Her erasure hadn't been an accident. It had been Rachel's plan all along, carried out year after year with whispers, tears, and carefully placed lies. And everyone had played their part by believing them. Danielle looked around at the faces, some shocked, some guilty, some softening toward her. And she knew this fight was far from over. But she also knew one thing for certain. She wasn't leaving. Not until the truth was fully out. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Everyone was watching, waiting for the next word, the next crack in the family's perfect picture. Danielle's heart pounded in her chest, but she knew she couldn't stop now. If she left things half-said, Rachel would twist it all again. Danielle lifted her chin. You all want the truth? Fine. Here it is. Rachel didn't just lie about that birthday night. She also stole from Mom and Dad years ago, and she made sure I was the one blamed for it. The words dropped like a bomb. Gasps echoed around the hall. A glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the floor. Her mother's eyes went wide. What are you saying? Danielle's voice shook, but it carried. The money that went missing from Dad's safe? That wasn't me. It was Rachel. I found her crying in her room that night, holding the cash. She begged me not to say anything. She said she would fix it before anyone noticed. I believed her, but the next day, when the money was still gone, she pointed her finger at me. And you believed her. Rachel's face turned red. Lies. She's lying again, like always. But the crowd had shifted. People weren't looking at Danielle like the villain anymore. They were staring at Rachel. Danielle's father spoke slowly, his voice heavy. I always wondered. I noticed things didn't add up. Danielle, you were just a child, and it didn't make sense. But Rachel cried, and your mother was convinced. I thought staying silent would keep the peace. I thought it was better to lose one daughter's trust than to break the whole family. Danielle's stomach twisted with hurt. So you knew. You suspected me all this time wasn't guilty, and you stayed quiet. Her father lowered his head. I was a coward. Her mother's hand covered her mouth, her eyes darting between her daughters. Rachel, tell me it isn't true. Rachel's composure cracked. Her voice rose, shrill and desperate. You never saw me. You always loved her more. Dad called her his star, and what was I? Second best. I took what I needed because I was tired of being ignored. And she pointed at Danielle, shaking with rage. She would have ruined everything if I didn't push her out. The words rang through the hall, undeniable. The mask Rachel had worn for years shattered in front of everyone. Relatives gasped. Aunts whispered prayers under their breath. Cousins shifted uncomfortably, unable to look her in the eye. Danielle felt her knees weaken, but she stayed standing. She had dreamed of this moment, of the truth finally spilling out, but it didn't bring joy. It brought a deep ache. So many years had been wasted. So many nights she had cried alone because of Rachel's lies. Her mother's face was pale, torn in two. She looked at Danielle, then at Rachel, as though she couldn't decide which daughter to reach for. How could you? She whispered. Rachel broke then, screaming through her tears. It's her fault. She ruined everything. If she hadn't come back tonight, no one would know. We could have stayed perfect. We could have been a family. Danielle shook her head. A family built on lies isn't a family at all. The room erupted. Voices overlapped. Some relatives defending Danielle, others too shocked to speak. An uncle demanded answers. An aunt told Rachel to be ashamed. The truth had broken through, and there was no hiding it anymore. Danielle looked at her father, at his downcast eyes. You let me carry this for years. Do you know what that did to me? He had no words. Rachel's cries turned wild, her hands trembling, her voice cracking as she shouted at Danielle, at her parents, at the whole room. But the more she screamed, the clearer the truth became. The perfect daughter had built her throne on sand, and now it was crumbling. Danielle stood still, tears running down her face. For the first time in years, people were seeing her, not as the problem, not as the outcast, but as someone wronged, someone who had survived. The facade was gone. What remained was raw, painful, and real. The room was still buzzing with the noise of Rachel's breakdown, but Danielle knew it was time to end this. She wiped her tears, straightened her back, and spoke with a voice steadier than she felt. "I didn't come here to fight," she began, her eyes sweeping the room. "I didn't come here to drag the past out into the open. I came here because I wanted to be part of this family again. I wanted to believe that maybe, after all these years, there was still space for me at this table." The crowd grew quiet. Even Rachel's sobs softened into hiccups as everyone turned to listen. "I wanted love," Danielle said simply. "That's all I ever wanted. Not revenge, not pity, just love. But for years, I carried the blame for things I didn't do. I cried myself to sleep wondering why my own parents didn't believe me, why my sister hated me so much, why no one stood up for me. Do you know what that does to a person?" Her voice cracked, but she pushed on. "It breaks you. And yet, somehow, I'm still here. I may not be perfect. I may not have finished school or become someone important. But I survived. And I survived without the family I thought would always be by my side." Her mother lowered her eyes, unable to look at her. Her father sat frozen, guilt written across his face. Danielle's voice grew firmer. "I can't beg for acceptance anymore. I won't keep knocking on a door that's been slammed in my face again and again. If you can't see me for who I really am, then maybe I don't belong here after all." Silence filled the hall, heavy but honest. Then, slowly, an aunt stood and walked toward her. "Danielle," she said softly, "I should have spoken up years ago. I'm sorry." She took Danielle's hand and squeezed it. Another cousin stepped forward. "We believed what we were told. But we see you now. We know the truth." One by one, relatives who had once whispered against her now came closer, some offering apologies, others just giving her a look of respect. It wasn't everything Danielle had dreamed of, but it was something real, something she had never had before. Rachel sat crumpled in a chair, muttering angrily, but no one paid her attention anymore. The shine she had carried for years was gone. Danielle turned back to her parents. She wanted them to say something, anything, but they stayed silent. Her father's lips parted as if to speak, but the words never came. Her mother's hands shook on her lap, her face pale with regret, but she too said nothing. And for the first time, Danielle understood. Their silence wasn't her burden anymore. She took a deep breath. "I don't hate you," she told them softly. "Even after everything, I don't. But I can't keep living in the shadow of lies. I won't let myself be erased anymore. If you want me in your life, you'll have to come find me. I won't keep chasing what should have been mine all along." Her words hung in the air, sharp and final. Some relatives nodded in quiet agreement. Others looked at the parents, waiting for them to respond. But still they said nothing. Danielle felt tears in her eyes again, but this time, they weren't from pain. They were from release. For years, she had carried the weight of trying to earn back her place. Tonight, she set that weight down. She looked around the room one last time. The faces she had feared for so long didn't scare her any. Some looked ashamed, some supportive, but none had the power to define her. Danielle had walked in hoping for. Danielle looked at the faces one last time, then set the small gift she had carried all night on the table. No one tried to stop her as she turned toward the door. The music inside started up again, but it sounded far away, like it belonged to another world. She stepped out into the cool night air. For the first time in years, her chest felt light, as though a heavy stone had been lifted off her. She closed her eyes and drew in a deep breath, filling her lungs with freedom she hadn't tasted in so long. Behind her, through the windows, she could still hear the muffled noise of the party. Laughter, clinking glasses, chatter. It all went on without her. But instead of aching, it brought her peace. Let them keep their party. Let them keep their lies. She no longer needed to be part of it. Above, fireworks cracked and bloomed in the sky, painting it with streaks of red and gold. Danielle tilted her head back, watching them explode. Each burst like a reminder that life still had beauty, even when people failed you. Her steps were slow at first, but soon she found a rhythm. With every step away from that house, she felt stronger. She wasn't leaving as the broken, unwanted daughter. She was leaving as herself, whole, alive, free. A small smile touched her lips. For years, she had begged for a seat at their table. Tonight, she finally realized she didn't need it. She had her own path, and she was strong enough to walk it alone. Sometimes the family you lose is the freedom you gain. Hey besties, thanks for staying with me till the end of this story. Imagine walking into your own family party, only to be told you weren't invited. Heartbreaking, right? Danielle faced betrayal, lies, and rejection, but she found her strength and walked away whole. Sometimes losing family means finding freedom. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next one.